Hello, everybody. I'm Rex Sykes, and welcome to Create Your Best Life with Rex. It's another Wednesday, and I'm so glad that you're here and to hear from my awesome guest today. And let me tell you just a little bit about her, and then we'll go from there. And her name is Joanna Rutherford, and she is a certified mindset and wellness coach and brain retraining specialist, dedicated to helping ambitious women break free from chronic stress, burnout, and health struggles. As the founder of the Revive and Thrive Brain Retraining Program, she empowers women to heal from chronic fatigue, inflammation, food sensitivities, gut issues, insomnia, and other stress-related symptoms without elimination diets, supplements, or more procedures. So I'm gonna stop there and bring her on so that she can tell us more about what she does and how she does it. And by the way, if you're a man watching, you might want to just pay attention. I'm sure that though she works primarily with women, that you have something that you can learn and benefit from by staying tuned. So here she is, Joanna Rutherford. How are you, Joanna?
Hi, I'm great. Thanks for having me.
Well, I'm so glad that you're here. And for the work that you do, I appreciate you, because anyone who's devoted to helping other people train their brain is got a warm spot in my heart. So tell me a little bit about yourself, or tell our audience a little bit about how you came to be doing this.
Yeah, so I'm 57, so I didn't get here overnight. Things happen in our life, right? And that's how a culmination of how we get to where we are. So I would say my story started about 20 years ago, and my oldest son had lots of food allergies and ADHD and all kinds of things. And the poor child was down to about 2 foods. And the doctors couldn't help, the alternative doctors, we had spent thousands, all kinds of things. And Mama Bear went to work and looking for something to help my child. I did a lot of research. As you can see, I'm a Christian mindset coach. So I was a believer at the time, but hadn't been taught any of these mindset type of tools. When I went to research things to help my child, I found a ministry back then called Be in Health. And Dr. Henry Wright, I'd like to just give him a lot of honor and thanks. That man started that ministry, and it's still going strong. I've been a part of them for at least, a better part of 20 years. The tools that they taught me were not things that I had learned in church. It's not a faith healing type of ministry. He actually was a DJ. He went into ministry, and when he was praying for people to be healed, he said about 2% people were healed. And he's like, I can't keep peddling this thing. I have to learn what this is actually about. So he took 2 years off of his ministry to study the scriptures on what it says about disease. And it was pretty telling. So he started this ministry. It's very much an educational type of thing. And I learned the tools that they taught me, learned how to pray for my son, who was not age of accountability yet. And my son was healed. And that was amazing. And it changed our lives forever. Now, what does that have to do with what I do now? So fast forward about 15 years, I started a business. We bought a big building. We renovated it. We had a beautiful gallery, tea house, art education center. We hosted the community college arts. We did weddings and all kinds of things. So the point of that was Joanna got tired. I got burned out. I was running about 5 businesses under one roof. It was beautiful. It was successful, but I was just running on empty. And I had 3 kids at home. I had a husband who was going through major health challenges. The perfect storm. Everybody has things. So what happened was I just ended up pushing harder and harder and harder, pushing through. That's what professional women do. That's how you're successful, right? You just keep going. So I kept going until I just hit the wall, and my body just started breaking down. I had inflammation in my joints and tendons and chronic fatigue, and started having gut issues and food sensitivities, and it just snowballs, which anybody with autoimmune you tend to know that you get one, you start to get another, and it tends to just keep going. So I ended up having to sell my business because I physically could not take care of it any longer. And I came home to heal, but I could not get better. I tried functional doctors, alternative, all of it. I had some titles they put on me, and I don't like to carry those. And I hope others don't take ownership of those either, because I'm hopeful that we can work and overcome those. But those were rheumatoid arthritis, chronic fatigue, all kinds of food allergies, that kind of thing. After spending thousands of dollars on alternatives and detox and all the things, I was barely managing. And something online, of course, struck my curiosity, and I dove further into that. And going back to, why did I not use what I learned with my son? I did. I tried it. I tried all the things that I had been taught, but it just seemed out of reach to me. It just seemed abstract, and I wasn't getting to the results that I wanted. So when I found brain retraining and I looked into the science, the neuroscience behind it, I'm like, this is exactly what we were taught in this ministry. He had a pre-med degree that did, and it's all about thoughts and mindset and how the mind programs the body. But the neuroscience just really backed it up. And the cool thing for me is that it was structured. How do you make this work? What do you do every day? It's not just here's an idea, an abstract idea, go implement it. And so that's how I got to where I am now. Use lots of different programs, research, all the things I could find. I'm a FOMO girl. I'm fear of missing out. I have to know all the things there are to know. So I left no stone unturned. I'm sure I did, but I tried to learn everything I could learn and buy every program I could buy, healed myself. And then I'm really, really adamant about helping other people, because I don't like hearing that this is not curable and that I have to live with this the rest of my life. And I just know for me that it wasn't true.
Well, you know what? I mean, that's beautiful, and it's awesome. And you exemplify someone with a need who has the curiosity and the fortitude to go and to find the answers, and to then apply those answers and make it work for yourself. The other thing, that you mentioned, I really want to emphasize this, because people do what you did, what I did. We try this, we try that, we do all these different things. But there really is a formula for making things work in the human being. It's not like willy-nilly, haphazard or random. There's a set way that the human works, that when you understand how it works and what you must do in order to work well with things, and you're willing to do those things, then you can get the results. And so many people, instead of going, I'm going to do what I need to do to make myself work better so that I can get the results I want, they try and fix problems outside themselves. Or, it's kind of like, if I want to learn to drive a car, I'm the driver of the car. It does, and yes, while the car might need to be repaired, I'm not the repairer of the car, because I don't know that. But it's not like you don't one day do something with a car and then the next day wave a broom over it, or shower it with this and that and the other thing. There's ways to fix things, and the human is the same way. Thoughts and feelings and words and actions all have a part in this, and understanding that formula helps you help other people.
I 100% agree. Well said.
So let's talk about that, because the other thing that I do appreciate, when you talk about, autoimmune disorders or problems with foods, is that the whole person is a composite of electrochemical energy. We're human batteries essentially on the planet. Our cells are work together simultaneously and sequentially, and they do all these miraculous things. And we have thoughts which lead to feelings, and words that reveal what we're thinking, and our actions and all that kind of stuff. It seems like it's a hodgepodge, but it isn't. And we're very patterned and very habitual with what we do. And sometimes making a small change in one area can lead to tremendous changes in other areas. But people need to understand how important it is to be able to do that. And a lot of people don't. They work on, fixing the car instead of becoming a better driver. I'm going to stop after this, but here's the analogy I use. If you don't know how to ride a horse and you get on a horse, you go where the horse wants to take you, or you stand still if the horse doesn't want to move. You don't know how to ride. But if you become a good rider, then you tell the horse where you want to go, and the horse delivers you. And that's how I view the brain.
Great analogy. I 100% agree with that. Yeah. You've come before me in this, so I'm not telling you anything you don't know, but I think just recognizing and educating that first step of the awareness is how.
Sorry, my.
Right. Okay, I think you're still there.
I am here. Sorry, there's some tech problems here.
That's okay.
You were saying something and then you accidentally got bumped. So you were saying just having that awareness?
Yeah, I think so. My opinion is having the awareness and the recognition and education of what's happening is half the battle, because once you recognize it and you become aware of it, however many times a day, that's where your power comes in, and you can make a decision if you want to change it or not. But for those that don't understand or know what's happening and they can't recognize what's going on, then that's when we feel paralyzed.
Well, and I would submit, as I'm sure you're aware, is most people don't recognize what's going on. They don't notice it. It's like if a part of your clothing is or your shoe is rubbing on your ankle in a way and you don't notice it, then you end up with a blister. The issue was there. You just weren't aware of it. So awareness is the first step in being able to resolve a difficulty.
Absolutely. Yes. And how do you do that? I mean, how do you do that? I could go on and on, but I won't. But I think understanding how the brain works, understanding that the brain is connected directly to the body. We've all been to doctors or had loved ones having health issues where we have to go part out everything to a different specialist, right? And it seems a lot of them don't take into consideration what's going on upstairs. And so we're trying to fix parts and pieces that have no whole, there's nobody looking at the whole picture. But the brain does. The brain is looking at the whole picture. It is the programming center. And once we understand and know that and really believe that, then we have the power, like you said, who's riding the horse, we have the power to change that. And so if the brain, all these neural pathways that have been formed as a child in developing brain and how that it's all played out when we're growing and learning how to think, those pathways are there for life. Doesn't mean we can't change them, but they're so familiar to us, we just assume that's how we are, that's how we think. But once we learn that those can be changed and those can be not only redirected, but one neural pathway shut down and a new one started, that's a new pattern, that's a new way of thinking. And once people really grasp that idea, it's so empowering and it's exciting.
Oh, absolutely. I think another important aspect of what you're saying is it's kind of like, what is it, the saying is something like a fish doesn't realize it's in water, right? I mean,
Right.
if you don't know what you don't know and you're not aware of it, and it's a blind spot, you can't see it. I mean, there's a reason why when you're driving, they go check your blind spot, right? But yet most people can't. And one of the reasons for that is because there are these patterns. There is the neural wiring. There are the habits that they live from. So they don't notice what they don't notice because they're too busy fulfilling the patterns and programs that they are successful at. And by successful, I don't mean they're doing what they want to be doing. they're just well-worn habits. Like biting your nails is a habit that people may like or people may want to get rid of, but it's a habit, and most people find their fingers in their mouths before it's like too late, right? Or they go to the refrigerator in the middle of the night and open some food before they go, oh my God, I wasn't going to eat that, uh, because they're conditioned. This is stuff that goes on in their lives. And in order to change those, what you're submitting is that if you've got a program or a pattern that isn't working, you can replace it. You can put in a new program. You can put in a new pathway so that you get a different outcome.
Yes, 100%. And I guess something that I've learned along the way is there are different methodologies to do this. Yours, mine. So, I think it's all based on the same science. How do you go about it differently? Something that's been important to me is learning that pathway is familiar, and our brain just runs down it without even thinking. But how do we shut that pathway down? And a lot of people, let's do affirmations. Let's rethink. Let's come up with let's flip that thought. Yes, I teach all those things. However, something I find important is not everybody teaches how to release that thought.
Yeah.
So it can take a long time to change a thought pattern by just affirming something else. But if there are methodologies to teach how to release that pathway to start with, and it's a lot easier to form a new pathway when you release the old pathway. And I might be getting ahead of myself there as far as how does the brain affect the body. But
no, I love that. We work in an industry, let's say, that's called personal development or self-improvement. And I disagree with both of those terms. But they're, like in occupational hazard, it's not so much that you improve yourself, it's that you let go of the things that keep you from being who you truly are. And once you learn how to, and so I completely agree with you, once you learn how to release things, it's kind of like nature abhors a vacuum. So if you create the vacuum by releasing it, then allow the right aspects to flood in there, then you've made the change. Where a lot of people sit there and they try and tweak and tweak and tweak and tweak, and they just never get anywhere, and because they're working backwards as opposed to the way things work. It's kind of like when you feel hungry, people you have the feeling of hunger in order to know to eat. But it's that feeling of emptiness that signals it. And so there's the ability to release things is so important. And yet so many people are trying to put more stuff on, which just tends to mask the whole situation.
100%. I agree. Yeah. And I think when talking about the bigger picture of how do my thought, we're kind of getting into the, how do you retrain your brain, but backing up a little bit, how do my thoughts impact my body? Let me, if it's okay, I just want to talk about that a few minutes. So we have a part of our brain, there are 3 sections, but as a whole, it's called the limbic system. That limbic system is the programming center to the body, and also to the other parts of the brain, say the histamines, the thyroid, the endocrine system. It's connected to the vagus nerve. A lot of people here these days, the vagus nerve, the parasympathetic, the sympathetic nervous system, those all go down and connect to your organs, to your adrenals, all the way down. So it starts up here and it programs all the way down. So what happens when we get what I would call in a chronic stress response state, or another term for that is limbic system impairment, is that limbic system gets stuck or it gets impaired. And a term that we might, everybody might know is fight or flight or freeze or fawn. That kind of keeps going. But fight or flight, when we get stuck in that fight or flight, I mean, it's there. It's a protective mechanism we're given, God given, for when we're being chased by a bear or a car, we're in an accident, we need to lift the car off somebody. Like, it's there for a reason, for protecting us. But we're not meant to stay in that state. So when we get stuck in that state, and a lot of times it's chronic stress for a long term, it could be a trauma, an accident, a surgery, something emotional trauma happens. We can get hung up in that state, like I did in my business for 4 years. It was just one stressor after another until the bucket was full and tipped over. And a lot of people can probably resonate with that. But what happens is we get stuck there, and then that part of the brain gets tripped up and it starts thinking everything is a danger because it's its job to scan the environment and look for dangers. What happens when it's doing that, it's also shutting down other parts of the brain because they're not necessary. Sometimes cognitive processing, you hear the word brain fog a lot, creativity, joy, emotions. So those things get minimized when the brain is trying to handle what it thinks is danger. So it can start looking at lots of things as danger: food, mold, chemicals, social situations, heat. A lot of people have all these sensitivities and they just keep acquiring more because the brain is looking at everything as a danger. So when that gets all tripped up and it starts sending false messages to the body, inflammation, it's directly connected to the gut. So digestive issues, of course, insomnia, those types of things. When it starts sending those messages to the body, and then it's just one thing after another, we get stuck in that state and it's a snowball effect. But if we can calm that limbic system down, which calms the nervous system down, that calms the vagus nerve down, and we get back into that sympathetic, parasympathetic nervous, where we're supposed to be, the rest and digest, then we can retrain the brain to rebalance the body like it's supposed to do. And it knows how to do it. It's just when it's stuck in that state, it's only focused on survival. We have to teach the brain that it's safe, that the dangers are gone, nothing's going to happen to us, and we can calm down. And I have methodologies that I've learned that work for me, and tools that teach the brain to do that. And I think that's hopeful. That's encouraging. We have the power, we have the control to take our health into our own hands. And so I hope that's gives encouragement to those listening.
No, it's excellent. I appreciate that, and 100% agree. There's nothing inherently wrong with stress unless the stress becomes chronic, essentially. Where you're dealing with something that you wouldn't necessarily need to deal with. I mean, there's a reason why we rest and we wake up, and why we, recover from illness and all these kinds of things. There's a flow. It's like the scripture saying, for everything there is a season. And so there's going to be times when you work harder and times when you relax. But some people get in that cycle of just having chronic stress build up. I liken it to if every day of your life, you said you were 57. If at 57 you wore every single piece of clothing that you have worn in your entire life, you would not be able to move.
True.
And yet some people carry past wounds and arguments and fears and habits and disappointments and stress, and it just builds up. And pretty soon, it's like wearing all those clothes. You just can't do anything. And so to release that and to let go so that you can invite a new way of being, to go back to that rest state, to go back to that recovery state, to go back to that restoration place. What kind of are there some simple things that you could tell or share with the audience that they might do if they are feeling stressed, that they might take a break or do something that would help revive them, even if it doesn't, completely heal them? They can take that baby step to making it better.
Yeah, I think number one, as we just talked about, recognizing if you take a break and look back for 15 minutes, or if you can, 30 minutes. What were you thinking about for the last 15 to 30 minutes? Were those thoughts serving you? And write them all down. And when it's kind of scary. It's alarming to look at all the thoughts that go through our head in that amount of time. How many of those are serving us? And if they're not, what would you rather be thinking? Now, what happens when we get stuck in that is, and I digress a minute, but I'll go forward. What happens is when the brain's stuck in that state, it ruminates on past things. So conversations, problems, conflicts, and it blows things out of proportion. So you might notice that you're overly sensitive, or you overreact, or you're irritable. So it can ruminate on things of the past over and over and over. And it also projects into the future problems. So thinking about all the problems that could go wrong, all the things that might happen, or the conversations that could take place. So the brain is overthinking, and it's not only overthinking about past, it's overthinking about future. Okay, so where we want to be is in the middle. We want to be in the present. So we hear the word mindfulness all the time, and it might get a little worn out, but that I'm talking present tense of just being in this moment. And people that are stuck, as I was in that, it feels impossible. It, like, your brain feels impossible to be in the moment because it's spiraling on past or future problems. So what is something that you asked me, what is something that we can do to calm it? And there are multiple ways to do it, but number one is just recognizing that it's happening. And number two, so this is something that I think is super cool, is when you begin to notice the difference between your mind and your brain, because the brain plays tricks. It's a trickster. And when you start to understand it is not doing what I want it to do, it's taking me down these thought pathways I don't want to go down. But until you get to a point of recognition, it just feels out of control. So again, going back to recognizing what I'm thinking and then choosing to change some of those thoughts. And the brain, because it wants to stay stuck, it will squirrel you out of that as fast as it possibly can. So really, when the Bible says, take your thoughts captive, that's not a light direction. But we can do it. He doesn't tell us to do things we can't do. We can do it. So I guess, to your point, first of all is recognizing, and then the baby step to start is to start flipping those thoughts. And when you catch yourself, your brain will flip you back to the negative because it wants you to focus there, is to begin catching yourself. The faster you can catch it, the faster you can change it.
Amen. Agreed. You know, I think there's something else that I would include in that, and that is, if you can look at your thoughts and realize they're not you,
Yeah.
they're thoughts. And thoughts are merely electrochemical energy that is a pattern in the brain. And they will go on and 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 on until you do something about them. So as you said, take your thoughts captive. The brain does what the brain has learned to do. And in my estimation, it only knows two things. One is to keep you surviving, which is what we, talk about, fight or flight, that kind of thing, and that keep you thriving, so that you reproduce and that the species goes on. And it will do whatever it's learned to do, irrespective of you, unless you take charge of it. And most people don't take charge of their brains. And what you so beautifully said is, the way that you begin to take charge of your brain is to notice what's going on, and then to observe it, like not participate in it. Because if you give energy to the pattern that you don't want, you're just going to keep the pattern going. But then to start to shift it, to notice that, hey, this is something I don't want, or this is what's happening, and to realize that, like, it's okay. One of my favorite book titles was a book called The Way of the White Clouds, because it was about being able to meditatively look at the clouds in the sky, just passing in the sky without thinking about them. The clouds just, they're carried in the airstream, right? And one cloud comes and another one comes, and then there's no clouds, and then there's another. Kind of like that's your thoughts, and just to notice that thoughts come and go, and let them do what they will do. Release it, don't fight it. And then once you do that, you can then start to steer it, because you understand that if you can observe it without getting upset about it, then you can shift it to something that's more positive or more productive for you. So I love what you're saying.
And to tag onto that a little bit, take it a little more, I don't know, clinical is the right word, but so something that we call outcome independence. So using what you just said, it could be emotional or physical. I call them sensations. We try to stay away from symptoms and that kind of thing, because the brain hears everything we say. So trying not to give that power. But when we have emotional and or physical symptoms, we may have a training in our brain from past life, of how we respond and how we react. But when we start to, like you said, curiously observe what's actually happening and not have an opinion about it. So watching our brain, watching our body, like curiously observing, where is that sensation in my body? What is that emotion that's happening? And then not responding in fear, not responding in a negative reaction, and not trying to talk ourselves out of it. It's more of just showing the mind that it's there. It's like you said, the clouds, they're just thoughts, they're just physical sensations. That's all they are. And we don't have to attach a reaction to them. And that starts to train the nervous system and the brain at the same time to calm down and not respond every time we have one of these thoughts, emotions, or feelings in our body.
No, that's great. I appreciate that. A lot of people, in rehabilitation, in like drug rehabilitation, alcoholic rehabilitation, things like that, or emotional, things. Some of the practices are just to have people sit and notice their preoccupation with what it is that they want to do. So they want to have a drink, or they want to have a drug, or they want to feel bad, they want to cry, they want to do, and to just sit with it and to notice it and to observe it and to time it, like say, do it for 30 minutes or 5 minutes, whatever you can do. And then after that, then, intercede. And what they ultimately end up learning from that is that it's okay to sit with it. In other words, because it's there, it doesn't mean you're bad. It doesn't mean you're wrong. It doesn't mean, anything about you. It just means that these sensations are going on, or these thoughts are going on, or these desires are going on, and that you create this gap between you and them. And then after a designated time frame, then you can shift them or entertain them or whatever you want to do. But the point being is you learn that you aren't them,
right?
That they occur, but you can be separate from them, have them go on, and it's all okay. And this is hard for a lot of people to understand, because if somebody says, I disagree with you, I'm this kind of politician favorite, or this kind of religious favorite, or I didn't like that movie and you did, they think that for some reason they have to respond, that like this is an attack, or this is something about them, if you know what I mean. And so people tend to mistake the sensations and the thoughts that are going on inside of them as if that's who they are, when what they are is kind of like somebody's playing a program in your head, and they didn't tell you that they were going to play it, and so now you're just listening to it. One of the interesting things that I think is really important is that when a thought arises or a feeling arises, that trigger only lasts about a second and a half. It doesn't last much longer than it. What happens, though, is that we then entertain it, and we put the energy into it, which prolongs the lingering. And so, but if you did nothing, it would come and it would go.
Mm-hmm.
It would come and it would go. But we've been conditioned in our life not to let it go. And so we say, oh, I feel bad. And then we feel worse. And then we say, oh, I'm really feeling worse. So then we feel even further, because we perpetuate what is going on as opposed to allowing it to dissipate.
Mm-hmm. Agreed. And I know I hear you saying thoughts and feelings, and I've heard you, I think, use the model, or what we call one of the coaching models, of how thoughts, feelings, actions, results. And that's something, but when we talk about feelings and allowing our feelings to lead us, and I think one of something that's been helpful for me to learn and to teach my clients is, we might have a feeling, whatever that emotion is, but the thoughts are really what's causing it.
Yep.
So if we take the time to sit down, what are all the thoughts when you think about this feeling of pain or hurt or rejection, or whatever it is that we're feeling? If you really sit down, write down all the thoughts behind that feeling, there's usually one or two that really stand out. And then you go, oh, okay, this is what the recognizing, and then when we have all those thoughts and they're causing this feeling, then we get to choose. Do you want to have these thoughts? Do you want to have this feeling? What feeling do you want to have? Then what thoughts do you need to create that feeling? And I think that also helps empowerment. Like what you're saying, like these thoughts are just clouds flying through here. But when we start to learn that we have the power to choose and they're not controlling us, we have the power to control them. It's just, I feel like that gives us our power back. And I remember back in my son was sick and I was sick, when you feel desperate and you feel like there's nothing, you're helpless and there's nothing helping you. And then someone introduces this information or knowledge that you actually have a choice and you actually can do something and you can be active, proactive in your own healing. For me, that was amazing.
Yeah, and I'm glad you brought that up because it is all about creating choice.
Mhm.
And I think what, another analogy for what we're talking about is your heart beats, but it doesn't constantly beat. It beats on and it beats off, it beats on. It's just like when you fill your lungs, you inhale and there's a pause and then you exhale and it seems like it's ongoing, but actually there's a little bit of a gap in between it. And it's getting that gap and then being able to choose where you want to go from there is I guess analogous to what we're talking about. But it is about choice and it's about giving people choice and helping them to realize that they don't have to remain stuck. They have a choice about whether to remain stuck or not and what they're going to do about it and how they're going to do it. It's all within their ability to do, and yet most people don't know that.
Right.
And because they're not taught it. I mean, they're not our society does not go, hey, you can change your feelings, you can change your thoughts, you can take control of the mechanism that drives you, and you can, live to greater happiness and success, because if you did that, you would never be a worker bee.
And if we were just taught that as children, all of us, how differently our lives may be.
Oh yeah. No, good point. I want to point something out too, and that is that revisionsps.org is your website, and I want people can see that in a moment. But also for those who are watching live, if you have a question or a comment for Joanna, please in the chat room go ahead and ask a question. Obviously, you cannot do it in a replay, but the replay has been, where the replay has been scrolling past too. But you can leave comments in the replay, and I'm sure both of us will at some point see them. So, but go ahead if you can leave a question or comment in the chat now. Please go ahead and do that. So continue, please. I mean, because this is fascinating. I like talking this with you. Nope. Go ahead.
Yeah. So going back to thoughts creating, let's say they create a response in our body. If we really believed every thought created a response in our body, whether it was positive or negative, how much more important would this be to us? Because it's an energy, it's a synapse. So every thought causes a reaction. We have the power to choose those thoughts and the reactions in our body. So if we move kind of a little further past this, and people use the word a lot right now of somatic. Somatic just means body. Right. Those emotions also get locked up in our muscles and our organs. People that have had organ transplants, they start liking foods that the other person liked. I didn't make that up. That's true. So those types of things, they're not just in our head. They're the thoughts and the emotions are not just there. They get lodged everywhere. So another tool I would say is how do we get that out of our body? A lot of people are doing yoga, or there's multiple methodologies, right? And in Christian walks, yoga is up for grabs, whether it's okay or not okay. I don't care. I say move your body, stretch, whatever you can do to get those things out of there. Slow walking is very good. So part of why we're doing this, we want to release this from the muscles and the organs and all the things. But another thing that's happening as we do all that is, I did talk about this earlier, but the brain has chemicals, right? We have a set of chemicals. An acronym is DOSE. So dopamine, oxytocin, serotonin, endorphins. So those are the good, feel good ones that we want to get that dose up there. The more negative ones are the CAN chemicals, the cortisol, adrenaline, norepinephrine. So people that are stuck in fight or flight tend to have a very high level of the CAN chemicals, the cortisol, adrenaline. Okay, if you look in any anatomy of biology of medical books, they show you what happens in that exhaustion stage of fight or flight. It affects every part of your body, your adrenals, you're secreting cortisol, inflammation markers, all kinds of things. So we we can get this overabundance of these more negative chemicals, and then that causes the dose chemicals to be down here. And what we want is this. So how do we do that? And sometimes, so I have some tools and visualizations and different things to help the brain, basically force the brain to start secreting those dose chemicals, which lower the CAN chemicals. And that's where we start to see what we call glimmers. And that's really fun. It's usually somewhere between 3 weeks to 3 months of people really committing to the work, and they start to see glimmers, and they're like, oh, I just feel better. I just feel lighter. I feel more joyful, getting along with my family better. I'm not so mad at work, or, so what tends to happen when those dose chemicals get higher and the CAN goes lower is we just get a little lighter in our step and we start feeling joy. Well, for people that haven't felt joy in 20 years and just thought, hey, that just sucked the light, I got older and married and had kids and life hit me, and I guess that just went out the door. And so it's really amazing when I get phone calls, and I'm not making this up. I have some clients that have called me and just said, I haven't been this happy in 20 years. I don't know what's happened, but I just feel so happy. And I'm like, I know, right? Is that so cool when that happens? What usually, and it's not always like this, the physical symptoms tend to be the last ones to go. It's usually we get the glimmers of just feeling better and more joyful, and things are easier. And then all of a sudden we notice, oh, I have more energy, not having to sleep 3 hours a day or 1 hour a day or whatever. So that's what happens in the brain when it starts secreting those dose chemicals. And so my program, other brain retraining programs as well, it's part of that is basically forcing the brain to secrete those chemicals that we want. And that's the beginning of the healing process.
Beautiful.
Super fun.
Beautiful. EMTs are trained. So, for example, there's an accident and somebody is hyperventilating, and they're filled with adrenaline, and they're melting down. Mm-hmm. You can't tell them to sit down and relax. So what the EMT does is we'll take their hand and help them walk it off, because the walking will process the adrenaline. It'll move through their body and they'll be able to release it. So they do it, usually by the hand, holding their hand, so they don't walk in the street. They don't do something that further endangers them. But they do it because they know that in order to help them let go of what's going on, they just need to move. And I always say, there's a saying, standing is harder than moving. And I love that because it's so true. These guards in England who stand, all day, for hours. That takes a lot of energy to do nothing and to not flinch and to not blink and to not, scratch and itch and all that. I mean, that's hard. But just standing still is a whole lot harder than going for a walk. And what people do is they get themselves stuck, and they get so used to being stuck, they don't know what it's like to be free. And so they get these glimmers. They start to get these, these like, oh my goodness, something here is giving, it's giving, and it's interesting because energy begets itself, especially if you pay attention to it in a good or bad way, it'll be, it will compound. So the more that you notice you're feeling better, the more better you'll start feeling, because there's a momentum cycle that's created. And the brain, is doing it, and you're encouraging it. In other words, and for a lot of people, they They have to give themselves permission to be okay, to feel good, to transform, to shift from what was a problem into something really nice. And I think that's so important. But the other thing that I think is really important for people to know, and I want to hear your thoughts on this, is you and I are talking and people are hearing us, but really all that's happening is there's sound waves that are percussing on our eardrums. They're not words. We don't understand the words. The brain translates the sound, the percussions into words that we can recognize. And if that weren't the case, there'd only be one language. But you native language speakers all around the world learn their own language, their own percussions wherever they grow up, quite naturally. There's an ability to do that. We're hardwired for at least for learning language. But the point being is that when you think a thought, we think we hear it in terms of the voice inside our head or the words or whatever, but it's just the chemicals. It's just the electric chemical stuff that's going off in the brain. It's not the words. This is why reframing or assigning a meaning to it or giving it different words or giving it a different signal value can help people, because if they think that the thought is the problem, then change the thought. Because
Okay. So I agree. And when we go back to how to release the thought, so that was a problem for me. I'm learning this coaching model and I'm learning these things. And I'm like, but what if I don't believe it?
right.
And, what do you just keep cramming the square peg into the round hole, or what happens? And I couldn't let go of that. And that's why I kind of kept looking for, people are like, some of the programs, you have to release negative emotions. You have to release these thoughts, but nobody tells you how to do it. Like, okay, well, there has to be a process here, right, folks? And so I did find a coach and I took her training and certified, whatever. But the point being is I thought it was really important. How do you release this so that I can believe that? Like, you're telling me to just think another thought, and I can do that for a long time and it may or may not work, but I really want to release the thought that I'm having that is holding me back. And I know I'm circling back around to what we first said, but doing that and learning to do that it's a very simple process, and it is a little bit tedious and a little time consuming, but the time pays off, because once you start learning and thinking that way, then it becomes automatic. It takes a little practice in the beginning, but once you start learning how to release a thought and giving your brain basically the evidence of other thought possibilities, it helps it to release that. Doesn't mean you have to believe it, but it helps you to release it. And then you can form your whole other thought path and it not be so hard. And I feel like that is such a huge step for people to learn. And it was helpful to me. And I just kind of want to bring that back home, releasing that, giving the brain evidence of other thought possibilities helps the brain release the thought. If that.
Oh, absolutely. Well, if you look at a picture of a loved one and you feel good, if you look at a picture of a person that you don't like and you feel angry or scared or hateful, all that's going on really is in NLP they call it anchoring, but you're having a conditioned response to a stimuli. And so, or you think about a favorite food and you go, oh, I want that. Or you think about something that you hate, you go, oh, I would never eat that. You're just having conditioned responses. You're like Pavlov's dog at that point. And the same thing is true about the words that you're saying inside your head. When you say something and you feel bad, or you feel, inadequate or self-loathing or fearful or, whatever it might be, those are conditioned responses to those sounds or those percussions or those chemicals. And that's really all it is. We as the human interpret that as, I'm having this thought, I don't feel good, I don't deserve this, I'm a bad person, I loathe myself. But all of that is conditioned. And that conditioning can be changed. And what you're saying is that if you there are ways to do that. And I think, and the first obviously is being aware and noticing. and then practicing some of the things that you've suggested so far, which I think is incredible. But most people think that because they think something, that that's the way it is, when it's just a thought, and the thought is just a packet of electrochemical energy. It's nothing more than that.
Yeah, 100%. And
And let me just say, if I spoke to myself in a language I didn't understand, like if suddenly tomorrow I was speaking Korean to myself, no, unless it were a tonal thing and I could, again, I wouldn't have a clue what I was yelling at myself about or praising myself for. And so all it is because I understand this language. I think that this language, the things that I say, are true, and they may not have any basis in reality.
Right. I think that's really hard to accept.
Right.
But once we start to see how they're not the same thing, like I said, between the brain and the mind, the brain is a trickster. It will tell you these things, and it almost becomes humorous when you start to see it, when you can start to notice what it's telling you, and you're like, hold up, I'm not going to buy that anymore. Like, that's my brain trying to squirrel me and take me in a direction that I know I don't want to go. And I actually don't have to go there anymore. But like you said, until you come to the realization that these are just thoughts, they're not fact. They don't have to be facts. Thoughts are not facts.
Right.
So then we have a choice to do that. Yeah.
Well, and the choice that you just is the important part. And the other thing you just said is, I don't have to do that. I don't have to go there.
Right. Right. If we catch it, we could catch ourselves an hour down the road and like, oh, I just spent an hour on that. I shouldn't have, or it's not where I would have chosen to spend my time thinking about the road I just went down. So the quicker we can catch it, the better. And that becomes that habit, we can learn that quickly.
Yeah, you could speed it up, because if it took you 2 weeks to notice it the first time, and then a week the next time, then it's a couple of days, and it's a couple of hours, and it's a couple of minutes, and then seconds later. Yeah.
Right. So something I work with, my client base tends to be entrepreneur women, probably a lot of solopreneurs who have multiple hats they wear, pretty stressful. Something that is typical, and I hate to use this word, but I'm going to use it anyway, a type A personality, because we have the choice to not have that label. And I like knowing that we don't have to be put in that box. But just to give an explanation, women that I work with typically have the same type of personality traits, say a type A person: perfectionistic, striving, driven, responsible, a lot of times the oldest sibling. Those types of it, like, we push through, we make it work, we handle all the things, and until things start crumbling. And so what I like to say is, those don't have to be our personality traits. Those can also be changed. And when we learn to downregulate our nervous system and calm that fight or flight, and we begin to feel differently, and we begin to have those glimmers, and we begin to have more energy and better sleep, all of a sudden those things don't seem as important. The drivenness, all the thing, like, we hear self-help, self-love all the time. What does it actually mean? It means a lot in this work. But when you're working with women that are running their own businesses, they have families and all the responsibilities, they're up working till 10 o'clock at night. They're leaning on adrenaline to get their work done, the cortisol, all the things. And they're like, no, this is just how I'm wired. Well, those might have been wired in as a child, but we weren't just wired like that so those can be changed. And that's a really cool thing. I remember I have a client who, one of her comments, paraphrasing, was, I didn't realize I could go to work, run my business without having to be on adrenaline. Like, I depended on that. And she was about to retire. She said, I just don't have it anymore. I'm worn out. I feel terrible. I've lost my mojo. And she, called and said, I feel amazing. I'm not retiring. I'm actually building an office. Like, this has been like a life changer and a game changer. And she said, I don't have to go to work. on adrenaline to get it done. And when I don't, I feel better. So it's just so nice to hear people recognize that they have a choice and they can turn it around. And when they turn it around, they feel amazing. And so I just want to throw that in there.
No, I love it. I love it. And the other thing is if you notice that there are habits or things about yourself that you don't necessarily like, not liking them is it going to help you feel better.
Right.
It's not an excuse to self-loathe. It's an excuse to go, oh, I can be different, and to notice and to do those things that help you be different. But I would say do it with a sense of appreciation and love, and you're going to help it that much faster than if you fight it and fight with yourself and things like that. I got to say that I've enjoyed this very much, Joanna, talking with you and discussing these important topics. And again, people can reach out to you at revisionps.org. And I want to thank you for being here. We're out of time, but I'm going to give you the last word. You have brought a wealth of information to myself and the audience, and I'm so glad that you were here. Thank you for being here today.
Thank you. It's been an honor. I really appreciate your time. And for those that have been listening, if this sounds like something that you're struggling with, I have put everything I've learned into a 12-module online course. It is a DIY with my support, and that is something that's just launched recently. If you go to revisionps.org, the link's there. You can check it out. If you have questions, let me know. But I'd just love to encourage all of the people out there that this is not a lifelong thing. You can beat this. You can overcome it. You can get your energy in life back.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for being here. Hang around. I'll be right back.
Okay.
Thank you so much for your time and for your insights and for all that you do. I appreciate you. Well, there you have it. What an amazing conversation with an amazing woman who is helping people change their lives. So thank you for watching. This is available in replay. It's Create Your Best Life with Rex is the channel where you can find this. You're watching this on rexsikestv.live probably, or you might be seeing it on LinkedIn or YouTube or somewhere else, wherever we stream. But the replay channel is Create Your Best Life with Rex. It's right there. And when you go there, please do subscribe, hit the bell notification so that you're notified about upcoming shows and all the different videos that are there on the channel. And go ahead and like and comment and share this out. I really do appreciate it. And lastly, before we go, I need to tell you that Life on Your Terms is my book. And you can get Life on Your Terms by going to rexsikes.com/book. Right there, rexsikes.com/book by my name there. And if you go there, when you get the book from Amazon, if you'll take your receipt code from Amazon, go back to the website and put it in there, I'll give you a free training. It's valued at $497. It's on Mastery. It's called the Mastery Loop. It's my work on how we learn and how we change, how we transform our thoughts, our words, our actions, and our behavior and our feelings to get different kinds of results. So go get Life on Your Terms. It's an incredible book. You're going to love it. It's an easy step-by-step blueprint method manual for being able to change your life easily, happily, and successfully. And then also, if you go and you put the receipt code in, and it's all explained right there at rexsikes.com/book, go take that receipt code from Amazon, put it in there. You'll get the training even before you get the book sent to you from Amazon. So go do that today and have a great read and have a great training and have, most importantly, a great life. Remember, if you consider something a problem, it is a problem. If you consider it a blessing, it's a blessing. So go ahead and just celebrate everything, right? Because it is all worth it. With that, I'll see you the next time. I got another great guest coming up in the next show. Go ahead, share this out. And I know you know someone who can benefit from what Joanna said. So go ahead and share the show. I'll see you the next time.